Rallying now found itself nicely settled. After years of fairly drastic changes and alterations, the WRC now provided a stable arena across the world for teams and drivers to go head to head. Lancia had of course won the 1974 season, and with their new racehorse weren't intending on retiring anytime soon. They repeated their victory the 1975 season, truly proving that their purpose-built rally car, despite a few problems with reliability, was the untouchable dominant force, and it won by a landslide. Because of this, the more exciting battle of 1975 was actually for second place, and by season's end Fiat had only beaten Alpine to number 2 by just 1 point. Because the oil crisis had subdued by now, a lot of the events held became firm staples of the WRC even to this day, such as the Monte Carlo and Swedish rallies upon making their return after a year's absence. Lancia then decided to better themselves once again in the next year. After claiming victory at the Monte Carlo, Portugal, San Remo and Tour de Corsa rallies, the Lancia team ended up scoring over double the points that second place did, who were Opel. Lancia had truly proven that a car built specially for rallying had the chance at complete domination if done correctly, and had set the bar at a new, albeit very tall height. Even so, Lancia's main rival, Fiat, had a very different point of view. After relative success with their Abarth 124, they set eyes on their newly introduced sedan, the 131, with the intention of modifying it into a rally car. The new variant, called the 131 Abarth, was powered by a 2-litre flat 4 making 225 horsepower, later uprated to 245. This, inadvertently, was a problem for Lancia, not explicitly in the car itself, but in the funding and politics that oversaw both cars. Since Fiat owned Lancia, they now had 2 rally cars to their name, one under their own badge and of course the other one under the Lancia badge. Therefore it would make much more sense for Fiat to push the 131 and not the Stratos. They wanted their car with their name on it to win, and simply put, it did. Many considered and still do think that the Stratos could have gone on to win many more rallies and was just a much better designed car. At the time it looked practically alien. While it was still able to hold on to its domination over the Monte Carlo from 1975 until 1977, the 131 simply had a much larger backing and snagged the world title in 1977 and 1978, and throughout its WRC career it managed to earn 20 separate event victories. For now, Lancia had been kicked off the top spot, but it wouldn't be the end for them as the forthcoming years would show. This period of time, however, sparked up a more forgotten rivalry between Fiat with their 131 Abarth and Ford with their Escort. Ford had made a fiery return in 1975 with their Mark II Escort, with a follow-up to the successful RS 1600 with the brand new RS 1800 with a 2-litre powerhouse making 250 brake horsepower. The RS 1800 picked up where the 1600 left off. The two had an effective monopoly on the RSC rally throughout the 70s. From 1972 to 1979, Escorts won the event every single year. But it did see success outside just the UK, with victories in the likes of Sweden, Greece and New Zealand. However, it would take a little bit longer before they saw true worldwide success. The fight between the 131 and the Escort was pretty evenly staged. Both were front-engine, rear-wheel drive, 3-box saloon cars backed by 2 of the biggest titans in motorsport. The Escort missed out on the 1977 WRC title by just 4 points, but that year saw the combination of Ford and Fiat take 9 out of the 11 total rallies, and in 1978 Fiat took the title once again, leaving Ford in the dust to equal Opel with just 100 points in second. 1979, however, would finally see the Escort take a title with 4 total rally victories over the season. However, despite the Escort being designed, manufactured and advertised predominantly in the UK, the win was claimed as an American victory. This battle, however, also proved just how unreliable rally cars were at the time. While the Escort was based on one of the most popular cars ever made, it had a severe problem with its head gasket, which could prove to be pretty detrimental. The Fiat, on the other hand, like the Stratos before it, had a recurring problem of poor reliability on the whole, but then it was Italian. Throughout this period, the FIA had also been trialling a second championship to supplement the Constructors' Championship. The Constructors' Championship between manufacturers was still the focus, but in 1977 they introduced the FIA Cup for drivers. As indicated by the name, the drivers would score points based on how they did in events, and the driver with the most points would win the championship. This was won by Sandro Manari in the Stratos in 1977 and Marco Allen in the 131 Abarth in 1978. In 1979, the FIA decided to go all in and form the World Rally Championship Drivers' Championship to give it its full title. The inaugural championship in 1979 was won by the Wonderboy himself Bjorn Waldegard in the Escort, beating out Hannu Mikkola by only 1 point. The new Drivers' Championship would arguably become just as, if not more important than the Constructors' Championship to many in the following years. Something else happened in 1979 that at the time most manufacturers didn't actually believe would hold that much importance: the legislation of four-wheel drive. While it was obvious to everyone that four-wheel drive would provide better grip than two-wheel drive, the increased weight and most importantly cost would mean that it simply would not be viable whatsoever. Most thought that it was back to the status quo as usual. However, it would be a small German company with no concrete rallying heritage to speak of that would finally prove that four-wheel drive was truly the future. As the new decade began, the game was about to change, big time. By now, cars were incredibly fast, but as rule changes came about allowing more power and less weight to be made legal, racers went from mere supercars to living mechanical bullets. It was time for the 1980s.